The Tim and Tony podcast is brought to you by. So Bucked Up. Tell the good people about them, Tim.
Okay, so here's the deal. A lot of my friends who have been asking me about Bucked Up since we got the sponsorship told me, Tim, when I get a pre-workout, it feels like I'm a meth head on Mountain Dew. And I will assert, as I've tried many other brands, that that is the case generally. Not the case with Bucked Up.
No.
And particularly not the case with this little product that I just started using. It's called Heat Hardcore. I started using it because I started a cut yesterday.
Oh,
trying to get in shape for going to Mexico in August. So we're very excited.
Oh, okay.
So for all of you who are looking to get into your Mexico body shape, Heat is a good pre-workout substitute. It's only got like 150 milligrams of caffeine. It helps you burn off fat really nice. Or just going for the traditional pre-workout where they have a bunch of delicious flavors. I have a huge ass stack next to me.
The chai spice is incredible.
Yep. Oh, and there's another product of theirs that I didn't try until I was sent it. Is those racked BCAs are,
oh my God,
life-changing. Those are awesome.
So the rack BCAs are fantastic. I've taken some other BCAs and like I know I took them, but I didn't feel them. This one, I feel like I could cure cancer. Disclaimer, you can't, but you feel like you could. The Pumpocalypse, oh boy. And if you use that in conjunction with the pre, you're going to have a fun workout. So that's to say, there are plenty of options at Bucked Up Fruities, and we're not even talking yet about the protein and the meal replacement protein. Both of those are very, very delicious and lean. So, Tim, why don't you tell us about that promo code?
Promo code. Again, go to buckedup.com. You can only use this online. You cannot use this at any in-store location. Go online to buckedup.com. The promo code is TNT20. That's spelled TANDT20 for 20% off your entire order. You can order one product. You can order 50 products. It's 20% off the whole damn thing. So go to buckedup.com today and let's start working towards those Mexico bodies.
Yeah. Use those supplements. It'll change your workout, change your life like it did us. So let's talk about Tidal, Tim. Why do we love Tidal so much?
I've got a Tidal sweatshirt on right now, and it is by far the most comfortable thing that I own in my entire closet. I absolutely love this hoodie that I have on, and they make the most comfortable gym attire that I've ever worn, frankly. Tried out a lot of brands. We're not going to name them on here, but you know who they are.
Absolutely.
And these guys make by far not only the most comfortable feeling clothing, they make the best looking clothing. They make you feel like a fucking badass in these things because they're perfectly tapered to make you feel very confident.
And I mean, if we can feel like badasses, that's pretty impressive. So y'all need to buy the stuff. I've got a hoodie. I've got a sleeveless hoodie that is just as douchey as it sounds, but fuck, is it comfortable? Their shirts are, like Tim said, perfectly tapered. The shorts are incredible. So, you got to buy the stuff. And here's the thing, though, Tim. Why don't you tell them about that promo code?
Okay, so on Tidal.com, that is spelled TYDAL.com. Use the promo code TAND15. That is TAND15 for 15% off your next order.
Off the whole store. Like, you can get all their stuff. You can literally buy the entire stock of their website, and you can get 15% off of all of that. And I suggest you do that because every single item that you buy there is going to be incredible. So, Tim, you and I, we've graduated law school. We attended law school for 3 years. In that time, we got to experience law school, and we got to experience it with our classmates. You are aware of the term gunner, correct?
Yes.
think Obama was a gunner?
So I was going to say this, but I do have some insight on this. I had a professor who I have a professor who went to law school with him.
So do I. So do I.
Classes with him. So
yeah.
We're going to do enough effusive praise, I think, in this podcast. But the interesting thing about him is that everybody always saw him as the coolest person in the room.
Mm-hmm.
He was never that annoying ass gunner who had to let everybody know how smart he was. He was weirdly the guy they were asking to speak more, because when he did open his mouth, it was so profound. So actually, he was not the annoying person in class, which kind of incredible.
He wasn't who Ben Shapiro says that Ben Shapiro was. Bringing books to parties.
Ben Shapiro currently is.
And who Ben Shapiro currently is. Bringing books to parties. And if you have nothing interesting to say, I'm just going to get reading done. Wasn't that guy? Which I so thought, like, at first glance, you would imagine, right? Someone that wrote a biography at the age of 30.
Yeah.
And someone that it seemed like had kind of been working towards being on a national political stage at some point in his life from pretty early on. You would imagine that type of person would be insufferable to hang out with on a one-on-one basis. And by all accounts, that's just not the case. So anyways, we're of course going to be talking about Barack Obama. We're going to be talking about the documentary that just came out, I believe about a month ago, maybe sooner than that, a couple weeks ago, on HBO, Obama in Pursuit of a More Perfect Union. On that note, Elvis Monroe, please play us in.
In a crowded room, somewhere in town.
So Tim, this is normally when I ask what we're talking about and why we're talking about it, but seeing as I already said what we're going to be talking about, and I was the one that picked it, I will go ahead and take the floor on this. I decided to do this because when I heard that he was not involved in the production of it, I found it very interesting, and I found it very curious that it would come out now. It would come out right at the beginning of the Joe Biden presidency. It didn't come out as like sort of a reaction to Trump, it seems like. It came out as just kind of a, hey, this is something we've been working on. It's done. Enjoy it. And it didn't really come out with a lot of fanfare. I opened up HBO Max, saw that it was on there.
And, you know, it's the thing that I was kind of hoping for more of, that they do in this doc, but I don't think to nearly the degree that they could have done it. They were willing to take a critical look at him at times, and at least be willing to have the conversation that it's impossible to have a flawless presidency when there's so many entities that work directly under you.
Right.
And when you're actually good at your job and you accept responsibility for the shortcomings of those who work for you, you're going.
And by the way, your own shortcomings.
Yes, well, that too, but you're inevitably going to have moments that don't go perfectly.
Yep.
And so I did appreciate their willingness. I wish they would have done it a little bit more. But the fact that he's not in it allows them to say things that they may not be able to otherwise.
It allowed them more room. It allowed them more room to do a more complete conversation, which is why I was a little disappointed, and we'll get to it. I was disappointed that they didn't do virtually anything about his military efforts. They didn't do that at all. Now, some would argue that that wasn't the aim of the documentary, but if you're going to do a documentary about the life of Barack Obama, and you're not going to include the fact that he used X amount of drone strikes throughout his 8 years, that's an interesting choice. And it's a curious choice because of how willing to be critical they were at all the other stages. But we will get into it. I wanted to start out with this question. How many more Barack Obama documentaries do you think we get in our lifetimes? Because I don't think we're going to get less of them as time goes on.
So there was the Netflix movie, right, that came out about his love story with Michelle. There's been Becoming Michelle Obama on Netflix. There's been several other documentaries, both on HBO, by the way, and Netflix, Hulu, etc.
And don't they have a Netflix deal?
They do have a Netflix deal. They will likely be producing an actual movie about his life from everything I've read.
Yeah.
I mean, the obvious answer is more, but I think the more interesting question is why. Not only is he himself historic, like for what he accomplished, but he as a person is like endlessly fascinating.
Yeah.
He's one of those people that's, in a lot of ways, he's like a Steve Jobs like figure. And just the more you learn, the more you're captivated by this person. You're like, this person is like the same species as me. Like, it's like what it's equivalent to seeing like a LeBron James in person, only with someone's mind. You're like,
but LeBron James, who's played like 9 different sports and has been incredible at all of them.
That's what I mean. Is it's like, I don't know how we're both human beings, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But you are. And so I think that's really the reason why. I'm only going to make this joke once. If Hillary Clinton would have become president, we wouldn't have gotten the same amount of documentaries, even though it would have been historic, less so, but still historic. We wouldn't have gotten the same amount because she's not interesting.
And when you're in the public eye for that long, it's just you're gonna.
She's not interesting.
We could do an entire narrative series of podcasts around the Clintons because there's just a lot out there. And when you're going to be in the public eye for, I mean, more than you and I have been alive, and when you're involved in a lot of the stuff that they are, you just get fatigue. And when you're not nearly as good at presenting as even, say a Pete Buttigieg or say a Joe Biden, when you're not even as good at presenting as them, when you're not as good as presenting as, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, when you're not, it's just kind of, it falls flat a lot of the times because no one's going to be really captivated by your story because not only have they heard it before, but you play one note and it's just kind of, it falls flat. But again, this is not a Hillary. You're going to say.
And just also, I mean, I think that you look at even Bill Clinton's presidency, and I don't think you see quite the domino effect that you do with the Obama presidency. And we can get into whether or not that's his quote unquote fault or not. But there's not as many dominoes. Like we can draw a straight fucking line to most things going on right now.
Yep.
Right back to shit that was going on 2008 to 2010, which was the most interesting part of the doc for me.
Ooh, interesting. Okay. That's good. So start off with a joke. Was it as alarming to you as it was to me seeing him sitting in what seemed to be coach at the beginning of the doc? Where he was just like sitting there, he had his bag in the seat next to him, and he was just kind of chilling.
It was jarring at first, and then it became more normal. Like as the documentary went on and we were getting these shots of him as a kid and as a young adult and stuff, it became more normal. But
it was all archived. It was all archival footage.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Once the first time you see him though, in that horribly produced documentary, I guess they were doing after he won state Senate, I think.
Yeah. Well, and some of it was on his book tour on Dreams from My Father.
But what's so captivating about it is that his even back then his speech pattern is the same.
Yeah.
When you look at politicians before they became politicians and became polished and stuff and hear them speak, they develop different speaking tics and they speak different ways. he spoke the exact same when he was like, I'm not saying nobody, but
when he was the president of the Harvard Law Review, he spoke the
same way.
He was making speeches as though he was addressing the nation.
It was the same voice, the same mannerisms, the same pace, the same use of the verbiage. It had all the hits.
Yeah.
Like if I closed my eyes and just listened to it, I would have thought it happened 8 years ago.
Yeah. I'm really trying not to use my buzzword, but this one's going to be especially tough for me. But yeah, it was really cool to see, because at least for me, the last couple of years, given, we're law school, hopefully eventually attorneys, hopefully eventually in a courtroom, I've been working on speech patterns. I've been working on my presentation style. And I watched a recording of me at the beginning of this whole thing. It was terrible. I had no inherent talent at it whatsoever. I had an inherent motivation to improve, but I did not have an inherent just talent about it. And now I speak much more clearly and I do a much better job of it. This guy, he's just amazing at it. It's really
seemingly cool, seemingly from the moment he got there. I mean, he was I think he started law school at 25, which is the age that we are right now.
Yeah.
But it is interesting that even when you look back on things that he wrote and said as a younger person, some people theorize that he clearly knew that he wanted to do what he ended up doing. I don't know if I quite buy all of that, because I think it's really difficult for someone to seriously think in their mind that I'm going to be president one day.
And that's why at the beginning I said someone that seemed to have some thought in his mind that he wanted to be on a national political stage,
but didn't know what.
Yeah.
And I don't even know. Yeah. I think that, I mean, he was working, I want to say not an investment bank, but a finance. I can't remember exactly where he was working before law school, but he was working a job that made considerable sums of money. He did work for a big law firm. I think there is parts of him.
And we'll get to his negotiation of working at that firm. We'll get to that.
But he clearly, he's one of these people that you honestly believe could have done anything.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same thing for many of the top people in society. And I'm not talking about billionaires. I'm talking about like famous athletes, people like Malcolm Gladwell, I believe could have been CEO of Exxon. He could have been one of the greatest authors of all time, one of the greatest podcasters of all. He could have done like a dozen different
things. And by the way, he might be those last two.
I know. He could have been the greatest sportscaster ever. Like, it's just whatever he wanted to do, he could have done. Right. That's who this guy is, only on a much higher level.
Yeah. So to actually get into what they did with the doc, obviously, I don't know which came first. It's a chicken or the egg thing. I don't know whether they decided to start with the In Pursuit of a More Perfect Union speech and then the title came, or if they knew what the title was going to be, so then obviously they'd start with that speech. But given where we are today, it was such a powerful speech at the moment, and it's a very powerful speech now, because ultimately that's a lot of the messaging that Biden tries to do, but obviously isn't going to do it at nearly that level. So it's a very current but not way to start this doc.
No, it is. And the best parts of this documentary are where they're willing to take a more critical look at him.
Yep.
But it was kind of a weird reminder of like, we used to honestly believe some of this stuff. Like, you look back on it now and you're like, You know what, man? And just knowing how the story turns out, first of all, but second of all, if this were to happen today, I know you're not going to get the votes that you think you're going to get from the other party. I know they're not going to work with you. I know they're not going to be nice to you or pretend to be nice to you.
Yeah.
And I think you should just run rap shot over them while you can. But that optimism, that like enduring, ever-present optimism, you can see it in his last speech when he knows Trump is going to be president.
Yep.
He still believes in this idea that like we're better than our worst moments. And that, I mean, his most famous line that I don't know why isn't in the documentary, but progress in America has never been a straight line, but it always moves.
I was wondering when that was going to come up and it didn't. But the famous line that they did bring up is there is no, I'm going to butcher it, but it's a paraphrase. There is no white America. There is no black America. There is no poor America. There is no rich America. There is only America. And it's a very interesting thing to focus on because then they bring in the likes of Michael Eric Dyson, they bring in Cornel West to say, no, that's not true. That's not right. That's not what we want him to be saying. Because it's just not the case. We know why we're doing it, or we know why he's doing it. And that's why I found the Al Sharpton inclusion in the doc very interesting, because Al Sharpton knew what he was doing, disagreed with it, but he's like, you know what? I know what you're doing, and I know why you're doing it. I agree on the ends. I don't agree on the means, but it's been so thin for us meaning them. I'm not part of that culture, and I'm not that, you know what, we can take this moment to take some ends. So there you go. It's a necessary evil to try and get more voters that maybe you wouldn't get if you give a different type of speech.
And there's, you know, I've said this, but the other great moments of this documentary are the behind the scenes stuff that we've never heard before.
Yeah.
Like his pastor saying that he told me, I envy you because you can tell the truth.
Yep.
Like that's just stuff we haven't heard before.
Yep.
And it's stuff we always kind of assumed based on logic.
Yeah.
But to see kind of behind the curtain a little bit like that, it wasn't jarring because you always knew that that's somewhat of how he felt about things, but it is interesting that he let certain people see that side of like, you know what, this is bullshit, but I'm trying to do something bigger than myself. Yeah. And that is, you know, I don't think that got enough play at the time, certainly. But I think it's one of the more interesting things about him now.
Well, and it's so tough what he did. Obviously, there was no playbook. There was no, this is how you do this. Mm-hmm. You had examples of people doing it on a smaller scale. You had Congressman Rush. You had other exemplars of people being in politics on a national stage, but never winning the national political position. No one had been in the presidency from the Black community. And so he had to write his own playbook. And it turns out he's really the guy that could do it, obviously, but he was the one that was capable of doing it because he had a lot of people telling him that what he was doing was incorrect. He had a lot of people telling him that he wasn't Black enough, which, man, what a shitty thing to say to a person. Because what does that even mean? And obviously you or I don't have the answer. We don't have the life experience to really even delve much into the topic. But the fact that that was the story and those were the types of questions he was getting was just on that.
And that stuck out. What stuck out so much to me with that is even in the moment where the congressman yells out, "You lie," during the State of the Union.
Yeah.
And he barely reacts to it, right?
Because he's used to it. Like
but,
that's been his life.
But what I'm saying is that it didn't stand out as much then as it does now, 5 years after seeing a fucking child have that office, where it's like, oh, I forgot. When you're actually confident and not just a piss baby, thin-skinned piece of shit,
you just don't care.
Stuff rolls off of you because you're like, we disagree. I'm going to do what I feel is right. And it's worked out pretty well so far. And you're going to do what you think is right. And I hope it works out for you. And here we go.
Yeah. Did he want to say some stuff? We know he did.
But he knew he was above it. That's the incredible thing. He grasped the idea of being above it.
Yeah.
In a way that not only can people not do in society generally, our last president couldn't do it all. He wasn't above anything.
No.
It was just everything was on his level.
Yep.
Like he canceled the State of the Union. Okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about Trump anymore.
Anyways, so the doc starts with some speeches, and then it starts, and the doc itself is formatted much like his 3 books, which it's a decision. I don't know if I would have done it, because then it kind of presupposes a formula, and I don't know if it shows a lack of creativity, but it's almost as though you just used his books to make your doc, which it's not the worst thing in the world to do, because he would know what his story is. But it seems odd that if you're just going to base it on his books, why didn't you bring him in? I don't know. What was your sort of thought on it?
I think that, I mean, obviously this happens all the time, but I think the idea of what that documentary could be and what it became are 2 different things.
Yes.
Because what it became was something that was clearly missing one important voice.
Yeah.
What it could have been is a more critical look at the most important presidency of our lifetimes, likely.
Yeah.
That's what it could have been. It just wasn't. And I don't think
it's not going to be something that I'm going to watch again. Not because it wasn't well done. It was a well done documentary. It was entertaining. It was informative. It was all that. But it missed.
It missed. And I think that, we're going to see constant Obama movies and documentaries over the next 20 years. But I do think there's going to be a moment probably 30, 40 years from now where we really understand how all the dominoes line up, because I'm just telling you, like, the country changed not in the way that people thought it did back then, but it flipped a switch. Yep. For good and bad in a lot of different areas of this country. And you're seeing its ramifications now in both the good and the ugly. So I do think that eventually there's going to be the documentary that takes the appropriate critical look at all of this and how we got to where we are.
Yeah.
And I think that
maybe we'll make it.
Maybe, but I do think that they missed their goal, because the critiques of him were always, but eventually I came around and blah, and I'm like, well,
they butted all the criticisms except for one, which I'm going to get to in a second.
And here's the most important thing. The reason this can't be a critical doc is very fucking simple. It's because the people that would come on to do it are batshit fucking insane. Like what?
Yeah.
You're gonna call Bill O'Reilly in? Like, who are you gonna call? And if you call in somebody who's left of him, they're not gonna do it either.
Yeah.
they're scared to do it also.
Yeah.
So you've got nobody who's willing to do it, and the people who are, nobody wants to hear their voice.
You don't want to hear Mitt Romney?
No.
Megan McCain? No, you don't want to hear those voices?
I think if you're not going to have him in it, having Romney in it's weird. Because because then it becomes, I'm talking about there should be smart people on there being like, look, objectively, X, Y, and Z is fucked up, but overall, we're pleased with what happened. That's what it should have been.
They cast it well, though. They did. They did,
but
they didn't go far enough. Nobody's willing to do it.
Yeah,
they didn't go far enough, but they did. I mean, Cornel West was not. He wasn't kissing the ring by any stretch of the imagination.
I'm not saying no, none of them were kissing the ring. I just think that, for my taste anyway, there wasn't enough of that critical look of like, look, nobody mentioned one time all the Goldman Sachs people he had in his cabinet.
Oh, we'll get to that. Don't worry. We're getting
that for me is an hour.
Yeah.
Like, how did we get there?
2000. The bailout should have been a whole part. We'll get to it. So he goes. I mean, so he's got Kansas, he's got Hawaii, he's got Indonesia, then he's got Chicago. I can't think. I thought moving from Chandler, Arizona to San Diego was a big move. I mean, how you come out of that in the way that he did, with the worldview that he did, with the background that he did, it laughs in the face of the nature or the nurture people, and it just screams that some people just have an innate nature, and this is just what's going to happen regardless of what happens to them.
Well, but interestingly, that fits perfectly in the story, right? Because he himself is comprised of all these different cultures and races. Yep. And he's got all of these different influences on him.
And by the way, I don't mean that as a criticism. I mean that like, he had the way that he grew up, he was always the other. And how he had speeches, like I said before, there is no Black America, there is no white America, there is no rich America, there is no poor America, there's only America. How that person is able to go on a national stage and do it as well as he did, and grew up in a way where even his own grandparents saw him as another. Mind-blowing.
It is, but it fits at the same time. He's got all of these different ideologies, so he can see things from every single perspective, even some of the perspectives we don't like to think about sometimes.
Yep.
And he sees the whole playing field where most of us only see half of it. And even that person who's that smart and who has that ability to quote unquote both sides things, was unable to break whatever the fuck we have going on now.
Yeah.
And that cannot be said enough times, because if there was somebody who should have been able to do it, who could have done it, it was him, and he fucking tried, and it wasn't happening.
He
and
tried,
that should tell you a lot.
He tried, and we'll get to the end of it when they acknowledge the Trump presidency, and that it was very much a reaction to it, and how a lot of people like Cornel West, like Michael Eric Dyson, that know what's going on. They said, we have been very much expecting something like this to happen. There's going to be a backlash. We don't know where it's going to come from. We don't know who it's going to be, but it's coming. And it started with birtherism, but we will get there. You mentioned his pastor earlier. I thought it was a very odd and interesting move that they didn't actually see all the way through if they were trying to do it. they made it seem like at the beginning that he was a reluctant participant in spirituality and being a part of a religion. I don't know why they did it. I know that one of the criticisms of Obama among outside of the tan suit variety was that he wasn't, religious enough. He wasn't enough, a lot of things, but that was one of them. And it's interesting that they kind of made it seem like, he had to be told, well, son, if you're going to do this, that, or the other thing, you're going to have to be religious, that some of the white people are okay with you. But then they don't really bring that idea through, and they just kind of leave it there. Did you get that?
No, I thought it was weird. I think it's weird to show the McCain moment and not talk about it.
Yeah.
Because it was a frequent criticism, and they made this subtle point in all of his speeches of not cutting off before he says, and may God bless our troops, may God bless the United States of America. Yep. They make a really conscious choice, and I think that somebody should have settled there and been like, look, this guy, if you actually look at what he's saying, should appeal to rural Christian white America every bit as much as,
because he's saying that we're no different.
Your typical Uncle Joe.
He's a lot of his messaging was that nobody should get better treatment than the other and all this stuff. And rural white America currently thinks that the left, the Democratic Party, is trying to put other people ahead of them. So you would think that a message, as Obama did basically his entire 8 years, would appeal to them, but it didn't, for a number of reasons.
Here's the thing. I don't, this isn't the appropriate forum to get into somebody's sincerity of faith, but just as Exhibit A, he's saying Amazing Grace into a mic on national TV. Whether it's partially a show or not, I don't really care. But if you're going to say that it's completely a sham, you're just not paying attention.
It's bullshit. Let me just say this. A person's faith is a person's faith. What they show you is what they show you. Now, I'm doing one of my favorite things where you try to make a point sound more profound by saying A is A, B is B. But what I mean by that, what does it matter to you what the man's faith is? What does it matter to you what it is? It's what his faith is, and that's his own personal thing. The people that say, well, now you're on a national stage, nothing can be personal to you. I'd like to think that that's one of those things that can still be personal to you, and honestly doesn't overly matter for being the president of the United States. What he shows you and what he is, even if it's two different things, who gives a shit?
And, to get into it deeper, he clearly has, like with many things, a lot more knowledge than the average bear. Because,
come to find out, when you see all these different cultures, you tend to learn a lot of stuff.
Well, it's weird, and I knew this, but it's always weird hearing him compare himself to a biblical figure in that Joshua speech, the Joshua generations. Yeah. It is weird. Okay. I'll say that.
Nobody's saying he doesn't have a very large ego, because he does.
But when you actually listen to what he said, it's like what he's doing is he's showing off this depth of knowledge about this area of the Bible that is understood but not very well. I'm sorry, the people who believe that Trump converted to Christianity before he ran for president, being the people who say he's not religious enough. I'm sorry, you're fucking stupid.
Yeah.
You are fucking stupid.
It's curious that the people that bashed Obama for the exact same thing that I don't think we should bash anybody for could not care less when the next guy came in. And he's so overtly himself in sound bites proudly professed his willingness, his enjoyment, and his like sort of fetishness of being exactly not what generally we would consider a good person. But he appealed to the people in this country that have their religiousness run their thought processes. Now, whether that's good or bad, that's how people decide to make decisions throughout their life. You are no better or worse for doing that. But it's interesting that the people that decide to use that as their North Star could not care less about
you just
the way that the next guy did.
You just showed it's not. I used to believe. I will say this. I used to believe that they sincerely.
Real quick, did you make that shot?
I actually did.
Oh, okay.
I used to believe that they sincerely did care if someone was a believer or not. And I was like, you know what? Your hatred of the other is fucked up. You're like, you want someone who's kind of like you. Okay, whatever.
Which is, you know what?
But that's not it.
No.
That's not it.
No.
Very clearly.
It's much more lazy than that.
Before Trump did the fake.
We don't need to say his name.
Before he does the fake horse shit that I'm converted.
Yeah.
He was making fun of every single thing that you claim to hold dear. Openly, notoriously, and over and over and over and over again.
And and he was giddy about it.
So,
anyways, I'd just like to say, not for nothing, I graduated law school at 25. Obama started at 27. Not for nothing. I'm just putting that out there.
You're on a better trajectory. Is that what you're trying to say?
I know, because he became president of the Harvard Law Review and went to Harvard. But I'm just saying,
Maybe Harvard will let you know.
I'm sure they'd let me do the LLM or something. That they don't give a shit about that. Think about where you are right now. Think about where you were, let's say, a year ago. Third-year law student. You know that the bar is on the horizon. You know that a lot of stuff that's going to be difficult is in your future. Obama was doing that, but he was also on national television doing talks about race in America and what his role is as the president of the Harvard Law Review. And doing it with full-ass adults that were old enough to be his parents. And holding court as good, if not better than them. Like,
so here's the thing.
How foreign of a thought would that be? Even just going on TV, not even going on there to discuss something as sensitive and as nuanced as that, because neither of us are equipped to do that. Just to go on TV to talk about anything.
So here's my, this relates to my theory, my overall theory of the case, other than the obvious.
Yeah.
The thing that bothered conservatives the most about him was that he was so clearly more intelligent than all of them.
Oh, yeah.
And what I mean by that,
yes.
But you see it at this early age where you go, some people have more bandwidth. And it's not even, you look at people who I swear to God are some of the dumbest people I've ever met, but they're rich because they don't have a lot of bandwidth, but they're just good at what they do.
Yeah.
Oh, whatever he put into his head, it was like he just could digest it differently. And you see it in those speeches as a third-year law student. He's also at the top of his class and the editor of the Law Review. but he's informed enough to make all these other speeches and have people want him to give these speeches at a place where there are very fucking smart people.
Where in his free time, he's doing what, for my money, would be the most stressful thing that you could possibly do. When he's doing that, I'm at home staring at The Bachelor because my bandwidth is up. I have used it. I don't have any more, and I need to stare at something that doesn't take any bandwidth to enjoy. While I'm doing that and struggling to even just finish my reading, his reading's been done for hours. That's an afterthought. He did that in his sleep. And then he went to class, took perfect notes, I'm sure, was good enough to be the editor of the law review at Harvard, was good enough to graduate. Was he magna cum laude or summa? I forget which one.
I can Google that really quick while you're talking.
Sure. But he graduated, shall we say, with honors. And that's, being very liberal with the term with honors. It's just incredible that we got to see this person at the top of his game when he was on the national stage, because he comes out with the convention speech, which, funny enough, we've talked about before on this pod, but
magna cum laude, so top 5%.
So top 5%. So he was at a top 1% institution, and Jesus, just incredible. I started it, so I'll say it. Just incredible. We already talked about the speech that he made during law school where he's talking about the professor that's going on strike. He makes an entire group of people laugh in a speech that's not supposed to be funny. That ability is that transcends a level of presenting that I don't think I aspire to get to, but Lord knows if I'll ever get there. So he does all that. He graduates. Then he says, hey, man, so I know I just graduated, and I know I'm only 30, but I got this book deal to write about my life up to this point. I want to work for you, but I need time to finish my book. As someone that is currently negotiating and trying to get a full-time job post-law school graduation, the thought of coming into an interview, going to multiple meals with a person, and then ultimately ending up saying, so I do want to work for you, but you're going to need to give me like 6 months because I need to finish up my book.
So here's the thing with that, though. He had a legit deal. He had already made money.
Oh, I am not saying that it was not legit. I am saying
if our fucking ass were like, I have a book to write, they would have been like, go fuck yourself.
See ya. Yeah. Oh,
yeah. Congrats.
Then hey, man.
Fuck yourself.
Then,
sorry for bothering you.
Yeah. Sorry for taking up your time. Good luck on your book.
Yeah, but
like he had a legit deal and needed to get it done because he had a contract.
Yeah. Well, he talked about in one of the interviews. He said I could write my own ticket out of law school.
Yeah.
He knew it.
Yeah.
Like he knew that he could do whatever it was that he wanted to do, even if that wasn't necessarily directly in law, which it ended up being. He could do whatever he wanted. And
yeah,
again, some people are different. I don't personally know anybody that could have made that decision with their employer, and
by the way, that book that he wrote, it's a very good book. I've read it. Dreams of My Father is incredible. And the reason why we kind of glossed over part one, all of his background and stuff, you or I are not the people that you should hear that part of the story. He wrote a book. It's incredible. It even goes over it in the doc. He will tell his story much better than what we could talk about. It is an amazing story.
I personally enjoyed the Trump claiming that he may have had a ghostwriter for it. That was one of my personal favorite conspiracies where
that's just bullshit.
He simultaneously called Obama Hemingway in the same sentence that he was saying he wasn't smart enough to do it.
Yeah.
But everybody knows that he was the one who wrote it. So it's like,
and he uses evidence of, and I would know, I've written many books.
Even Trump
Roten. I just said Roten. Nice.
That's probably what he said. But even that guy has to be like, wrote a hell of a book. That's why I don't think he wrote it. It's like, what?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a weird criticism.
People are saying, man. People are saying. And then he does what many of us with not nearly as much bandwidth do. He moves for a girl. Which that moment of the doc, I was like, oh, so he is like all of us.
Mm-hmm.
He moves for Michelle.
There's parts of him that are just like everybody else that remind us that he is in fact human.
Smokes cigarettes, likes beer, and moved for Michelle. Now, it just so happens that it's Michelle Obama. So hey,
his former supervisor.
His former supervisor. Yeah, but turns out it was a really good decision. But
if you haven't, I have to interject. If you haven't seen the Becoming Michelle Obama documentary, there is a moment where she talks about that moment when he decides to move back with Oprah and his first day at her law firm. That you should hear it from her, because I'm not going to repeat what happened, but it is delightfully funny.
It is. The decision to then focus on Senator Braun at the time, I noted, was really cool to show the sort of intro into what his campaign would be. What I didn't know is that's who he would be going up against. And that's the institution that would be standing in the way of him progressing in his political career. In retrospect, it's a very direct, very intentional move.
Here's the thing. I've made fun of many a person for comparing themselves to people who they do not measure up to. Obama's constant willingness to compare himself to Abraham Lincoln, even from the very beginning, is
much to the chagrin of many.
Much to the chagrin of many. But even from that beginning moment where he starts making the comparisons by, I believe he even launched that campaign at some Lincoln historical site.
He did. I believe he launched it where the Emancipation Proclamation was signed.
It was
one of the Abraham Lincoln historical buildings in Illinois.
Here's the thing. Again, nobody's perfect. Even one of the smartest people we've ever had as a country. And by the way, just to get this out of the way, when you think about the options we've had since him, when you think about the level of intelligence that we had one of our best citizens, which is what we should have all the time, by the way, but we had one of our best citizens in that office for a long time. That's pretty cool. Aside from that, even one of our best and brightest took a look at just the towering figure that is, and was like, I got this.
Yep.
did like the Dion Waiters, J.R. Smith.
Hold my beer,
guys.
Hold my beer.
I've got this. Watch this. And he did not have it. As it turned out.
Obama's many things. He did not shoot 100% from the line. He did not bat 1,000. And in fact, I
have to play basketball with him, because I've never heard the proper story, but I have some feelings. There's a lot of jacking stuff up. I think there's a lot of jacking it up. I do. I think there's a lot of, if you really talk to the people who play with him, there's a couple. Oh God, he's shooting.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
Can I? So we're gonna start doing cutouts. Should I cut out Tim? He wants that smoke. You want to play Obama one-on-one?
No, not one-on-one. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
He's definitely I've played with people with irrational confidence before.
Ooh,
I see what they do.
So you're saying that Obama's got a little bit of irrational confidence on the court? Is that what you're saying?
Who's gonna tell him not to shoot? That's all I'm saying. if you're playing basketball at the President of the United States, who's going to be out there being like,
who's going to check you? You don't think Arnie Duncan?
Pass the fucking ball.
You don't think the education secretary is going to check him? No.
No, and again, we can get into the sports habits of many of our former presidents. I think Obama's is one of the cooler ones,
or lack thereof.
He's not kicking golf balls on the golf course and making up strokes.
What's funny that you say that. So, with the very unfortunate resurfacing of Afghanistan in the current events lexicon that we have today, there was a video that resurfaced of Bush. He was out on a golf course, and he gives this very stern speech about the Middle East, and then he turns around. He goes, "Now watch us drive." Hits it. He's leaning into it. He does that. It was obviously either a hook or a slice. Like, very clearly not a great shot. He got a hold of it, but very clearly not a great shot. He walks off the tee box, gets in the cart, and just goes, "See you at church."
That's how you know what they really care about is when all of a sudden golf became a big thing.
Yeah.
But yes, that video is hilarious, and it is a perfect representation of hypocrisy in this country.
Well said. To now just a fumbling segue into one of the more lighthearted moments and more heartbreaking moments of this documentary, when he gets word of his mom and he doesn't get to say goodbye. You can tell that it informs a lot of what comes in the later doc when he's making speeches about Sandy Hook, about some of these just the word heartbreaking is the best way to put it. It's just there's nothing good that comes out of it. It's just all terrible. It's just all shitty. And it's just, you don't wish that on anybody. You can tell that it impacts him for, obviously, something like that. You're a parent dying without you being able to say goodbye. That'll impact someone for the rest of their life, and I don't wish that on anybody. But you can see it specifically when he has to go talk to these people, that it's the reverse. It's parents that don't get to say goodbye to their children. And it's just, it got me. As we've said multiple times, I'm an easy mark when it comes to getting emotional during stuff. But shit, man, it's a moment, and it's a tough one.
I mean, it should be, to me, it's not that he doesn't get to say goodbye, because I think the majority of people don't get that chance, to be fair. I think that it's more rare to have the chance.
You might be right about that. You might be right.
It's more that he was working while she was passing away. That's what makes this different.
Yeah,
because
that's a fair point.
Because to me, that's what makes it heartbreaking, is that he knows that he made a choice to be somewhere else and doing something that he knew and believed was important.
And it was.
And when it was.
And that's the tough thing.
But he missed that chance. And that's what makes it tough for me, because, like, he knows this. If he was less busy and less motivated and less driven and had a 9-to-5, he probably would have been there, you
call off. I even the worst of bosses. Hey, my mom is on her deathbed. The worst of bosses would be like, I don't like it, but I know I can't do a damn thing about it. So adios.
He gets the call and he's several states away, and there's no amount of jet in the world that could have gotten him there fast enough. It's just a fact. So
it's one of those moments that, I don't think he ever really spoke about it, and I don't think he should. Just because there's a few moments in a person's life that, like, you know what, man.
He spoke about her. I mean, that was in the doc. I mean, he talked about her and what she meant to him. I don't think he's ever really gone into that moment, although, you know, you can't say that that's a common theme with him, because as the documentary points out and is abundantly evident to anybody who was paying attention during that time, he was more than willing to be very, very emotional at multiple points,
and was one of
talking about things important to him,
and was one of the coolest things about it. But yeah, it's just it's a tough moment to watch. It's one of the better moments of the doc that they let it just breathe. They let it sit, and then they moved on. They didn't bring someone in to talk about it. They didn't really do much on it because it spoke for itself.
I personally wish there wasn't videotape of it, but that's the world we live in.
Yeah.
I don't know who authorized that. If he authorized that or the family authorized that, I'm perfectly okay with it. It just seemed like it was a fucking bystander, though, from the angle. That's kind of my issue with it.
It seemed
like a news camera.
It was one of the TMZ moments.
It seemed like a news camera.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, this is good. I don't need to see this.
so they then moved to he's in office in the Illinois State Senate, where again we see it's great at speech making, speech writing, speech giving, and we get the quote that he's told, "I think you changed a lot of minds, but you changed no votes." I can't think of a more American statement than that. And I can't think of a more concise way to describe what our political climate is right now. Because
it speaks to how it changed, right?
Yeah.
Because if you go back in our history, some of the greatest American achievements come after great speeches by American presidents.
Yep.
Or by other figures. I mean, Martin Luther King instantly comes to mind. That speeches were sort of this call to action that got us rallied up in the right direction. But now the best speech in the world is only going to be heard by at most half the country.
At most.
And so again, I'm not smart enough to solve this problem.
Nope.
But we're in this post motivational world that sort of started with him.
Oh, see, I thought you were going to say post-racial world.
No, but
we'll get into that.
What I just mean is, like, we're kind of past that point that I think he understandably thought we were still in, where a president could give a speech and we were like, okay, well, you know what? That was a great speech. I'm ready to go. That was really well done. No, logic has nothing to do with it, as we've learned.
Nope.
And that's what we've come to accept in 2021 that we didn't back then.
Yeah. To think that there was a moment that Obama almost left politics because he loses. He goes for the national seat and he loses. It's what a sliding doors moment. I don't even know if this is an appropriate comparison, but currently Marvel has had a television show called What If, and it's looking at, if some important parts of the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies, if they would have happened differently, what would have happened. To think of what would have happened just with the Democratic Party. Say Obama doesn't have his convention speech. Say Obama is not the nominee in 2008. That likely means that Hillary is on deck.
Likely.
And how different it would have been with her going up against, McCain. With how different it would have been with her going up against Mitt Romney. Because I think she wins against a politician. And she almost won against Trump. Got more votes. but
I'm of the mindset that maybe McCain, because of where the approval rating of the president was, I don't think she survives the second term because she's the worst politician in history. And if not the worst,
maybe
she's
the
greatest, most famous one.
Maybe she's the greatest resume that we've ever seen that didn't become president. But damn it all, she just doesn't message well.
She's the most overrated, famous person who is awful at politics.
Yeah,
that has existed in my lifetime. That's all I know.
Yep. Yeah, but just to think of everything that would happen, it makes me scared. But it didn't happen, so we don't have to worry about it. My biggest critique of Obama, 2004. He says instead of 2004, it says 2004. And it made me want to slam my head through a brick wall. Just going to say.
Good for you, I guess. Congrats on that.
So then they show us an interview. Yeah, I don't know. It struck me. So then we get an interview where the interviewer asks him, "What's up with the name?" That's the only time, maybe only inclusive with you lie with that moment. That's the only time I've ever seen him look like he actually wants to punch somebody.
Yeah, but you've also got to remember that's just, they do the montage of people asking him, white people, by the way, asking him the question about whether he'll appeal to black voters if he's black enough, type of thing. It's just another moment where he was, you see it, like there's a difference in people who are really confident and people who are fake confident.
Yep.
And as much as people like some folks on Barstool and Donald Trump and those types of people want to act like they're tough and confident, when it comes down to it, they're thin-skinned. Like it's the Kevin Durant syndrome, because I believe Kevin Durant is one of the most confident people in the world, but I don't think he has internalized it.
Nope.
To the level of someone like Obama, where it's like you ask him the most insulting shit in the world, and he pauses for a second, thinks about it, tells himself not to say the fuck word on national television, and then calmly responds like a gentleman. Just a consummate
that
gentleman is confidence.
Yeah. So that brings us then to the quote that someone, or I believe Obama himself, said in the archival footage: "When your name is Barack Obama, you don't get any free votes," which is a very, very true statement. It's a very unfortunate statement about the state of our country, but I even remember back in that day, and people saying like, "Oh, his middle name's Hussein," and that just like they couldn't get past it. That was the one reason why they didn't vote for him. Not great.
Yeah. In addition, that's another thing that you saw carry over into 2015. It's the reason Trump did the Muslim ban. It's all connected. It was like, I know this thing scares you for some reason. We know the reason, but we're going to pretend like we don't.
We're going to act like we don't know, because if you say that you're this one thing, oh, I'm not that. This thing really bugs you. And to be semi-fair, some people are ashamed of the fact that they feel that way. Not that that makes it all that much better. Like, to know that what you're doing is wrong. Again, it's the whole argument. Are you lying or are you stupid?
And that's the thing. it really bugs some people, but those people were never going to vote for him anyways, and that turned out to not
because he could have been Dave Jones, and just by virtue of how he looks, they might have tricked some people that never saw him, which is probably a lot more people than I'd like to think there is.
They called a fist bump a fucking terrorist hand signal.
Yeah,
they were gonna do it anyways. But that's what we know now.
When he wore a tan suit, they said that this was the most disrespectful things. Yeah, I mean, it's what we do.
I don't mean to jump the gun too much, but the problem, I think, with the Breitbart story where they edited the video of the woman saying basically she denied benefits because someone was white, which turned out to be an edited version of what she actually was trying to say. Is that what was left out of that is back then we didn't actually think someone would do that. Like, it's hard. I know it's hard. I know it's weird to believe now, but I was taking it back to then. It was like, wait, a news organization completely fabricated something?
You know what? Now, Tim,
now it's like, of course they did.
Now
I know that they did that.
Now we're fucked, but we know it.
Like, people now are like, wait, they took a Breitbart video and they fired her over. It's like, okay, hold on. Now we know to look a little bit deeper. Back then, it was like, no self-respecting news organization is going to do what they do now on a daily basis.
And turns out
they did back then.
And turns out Breitbart isn't self-respecting. But regardless, back then, 2004, no black members of the Senate. Wow. And again, I know it's not a shock to many, but as far back as 2004, or as far forward as 2004. Like, that sounds like one of those stats that's like, oh yeah, dad or grandpa, like, what was it like? How was that? Like, what was it like back then? Nah, we saw it. This shit isn't new. Or sorry, this shit isn't that old. Like, it's depressing.
It's also, though, it's what's the other tough thing that's going to come out of this is a lot of the Clinton stuff that I think people somehow forgot about or they just wished it away type of thing. Again, not that long ago that it was considered a mainstream Democratic position to say things that were just openly, flat out fucking racist. Like, there's just no other way around it. Some of the stuff that Bill said into a camera was fucking nuts.
The Bill Clinton, the Jesse Jackson comment. Ugh.
I'm sorry. Like, it's just not that long ago. It's just not that long ago. And it sounds weird, but I know I was a kid back then. Nobody batted an eye at that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Well, that's what's crazy is that when people try to act like things are changing so quickly in this country, it's like, you know what? They change so goddamn slow for so long.
Yep.
You know, maybe some radical change is kind of necessary because, God damn it, we were in 2008 and we were just okay with this shit.
Yeah. The convention speech, we've talked about it ad nauseum. I'm not gonna. It was one of the best speeches in American history. Watch it; it's awesome.
There's not a lot of debate there.
The quote, "I am my brother's keeper. I am my sister's keeper." I just want to pull that out. Candidly, that's what we're missing right now. That's what we're missing right now with COVID and with politics generally. It's like, I'm not going to get the vaccine. I'm not going to get the vaccine because it doesn't impact me, and I just don't give a shit.
And by the way,
and that argument, it's just like, oh, cool. Then, do your thing, I guess.
But again, it's weird because Biden says some of the same type of things, and when he says it, I get like openly, viciously angry because now we know, right? But
that ship has sailed.
The ship's gone. It's not even in the harbor.
Actually, it got blown up.
Yeah, it's gone. But if you pretend
the crew's dead,
if you pretend like you're in an alternate universe for 2 seconds, you're like, you know what? That is how we should be. That's not how we're ever going to be.
And so stop, because you're fighting losing battle.
You really should stop trying to get 5 Republicans on stupid fucking bills. But that's neither here nor there.
Yeah. It was very cool to see John Lewis. I'm very happy that they were able to get him, that they were able to have him in this doc. Legend. Very cool.
Legend.
If you don't know who John Lewis is, Google him. I don't know.
Or just when you find out that his Voting Rights Act's about to fail in the Senate next week.
Why you gotta come on, man?
I'm just saying you're gonna hear his name here coming up.
I'm trying to do a thing here. Why you gotta? Now I'm upset.
It's about to get filibustered out.
Now I'm upset.
It's a fact.
Yeah. Anyways, on a more negative note, I hate that Iowa is so important in Democratic politics.
And we didn't start thinking about it until this last cycle.
Yeah.
Really. I'm saying mainstream. Like there's always been people who are like, look, and writing articles. But I'm talking like mainstream on like fucking CNN. People were like, you know what's fucking weird? Is that Iowa is the most important state in the country.
Yeah.
It just is. Name another more important one. There isn't one because you have to win there to have a chance or at least come in second.
Yeah.
You can't, like, Biden is the only person so far that has just outright failed in Iowa and gone on to win. And there were structural advantages that allowed that to happen.
And money advantages.
And money advantages. The average candidate, you have to finish first or second.
Yeah.
In a predominantly white, completely homogenous area that is unlike any other part of the country, pretty much.
Yeah.
Crazy. It's fucking crazy.
Yeah. Part 2, it really reminded me of more of like an issues-based politics as opposed to the controversy-based politics that we have. Yeah.
I had the opposite reaction.
Really? Well, because, okay, so it showed that when we were getting the controversy-based politics, everyone's like, oh my God, what are we doing? This is not how we're supposed to be acting. Because the Reverend Wright stuff, it really was a precursor to what basically is 90% of political coverage now.
Well, yeah, and it's them talking about McCain's best moment. I thought was actually, I've never heard one of them say that out loud, someone who worked on his campaign.
Yeah.
It's funny to look back now and be like, that might have been like, you now see what happens when somebody chooses not to take the high road there, right? Where they choose to take that person's prejudice and turn it into action.
Yep.
Against that person who they're naturally prejudiced against. We've seen it. Back then, we kind of had an idea that that could happen, but we didn't really know.
Yep.
So to see that fire just be kind of put out in that way. But yes, the Reverend Wright story from the 2008 election is most of what politics is now. Yep. Obama somehow didn't go to church enough, but also heard every sermon this guy gave. I mean, whatever.
And was able to do speeches where he was, anyways. Before the next guy's campaign, I would have said that negative campaigns can't work because people see through it. But he perfected the Sarah Palin approach. He did. Like, McCain
just
laid the groundwork.
Out.
Just put it out there, and if it doesn't work, you throw something else out there. It'll work. I
heard he's friends with a terrorist, William Ayers. I heard he's friends with him. Wasn't true. Wasn't ever true. He was at school the same time he was a professor there. That's what was the story.
I heard
he was friends with him, though.
I heard he was born in Kenya.
That's what you do. And by the way, I don't think we give her enough credit for showing that that could work. that people, when they heard it, weren't going to be like, whoa, what the fuck is this? It was more like, yeah, hell yeah.
It was a new voice in a new echo chamber that a lot of people jumped into.
She threw gasoline on all this. Her shit now, where she's pretending like she doesn't go along with what Trump's all about.
Yeah.
She's one of the people who allowed it to happen. Like, go back and look at it.
She was Trump light. She was Trump 1.0. Was McCain's defense of Obama in the moment that we already talked about? Was that kind of the last moment that we had of quote unquote clean, an attempt at clean politics? Because I don't think we've seen a moment like that since.
I firmly don't believe that you can win a Republican nomination now and be that way.
Yeah.
And be gracious and be, I'm just going to say it, intelligent. And I'm not talking about just being smart. I'm talking about like, you know what the fuck's up and you know how to apply it type of thing.
Yeah.
And there was a time, by the way, there was a time where Republicans were, I think they were wrong, but they weren't just outright batshit insane, which is what they are now. So the McCain thing, not only would he not win the nomination now, he would get crushed. That type of moment, Trump would instantly be on TV, as I'm pretty sure he was back then, saying how weak of a move it is. Here's the thing. You know, you and I don't agree with everything John McCain said or did in his lifetime, but there's two moments in that guy's life that really stand out. Yep. Where he was like, you know what? Sometimes the truth is just the truth.
Yep.
It's that one. And it's when he does the thumbs down when he's going through brain surgery for the when it's just repeal the Affordable Care Act with no replacement. He's like, you know what? That makes no fucking sense.
Nope. I'm not necessarily for the Affordable Care Act, but you don't have something to replace it? Well, okay, that's batshit crazy.
So you're morons. That can't be allowed to happen. So you know, that is one shining moment in our politics history. Unfortunately, it actually stands out, and it shouldn't, but it really sticks out.
Yep. I will always remember where I was when Obama won the presidency. It's just one of those moments. It was a very cool moment. It was a very city on a shining city on a hill moment. Which then the next guy
believe that we were who we wanted to be.
Yeah. And then the next guy came and bulldozed it. But you know, it was a cool moment.
Us who we actually are.
Yep. When they put the video of the woman that Obama was talking about during the speech, when they put the recording of her in the doc, that was the best moment of the documentary. And it was one of the things that's like, okay, you guys do know what you're doing. Okay, that's cool. That was very well edited. That was very well done. When we go over the bailout, they really glossed over it.
Meaning they didn't talk about it.
Yeah.
Meaning the only comment that I actually thought was actually rather insightful was, how can the first black president let the banks fail? Can you imagine what they would have done to him if he allowed that? It's an angle, obviously.
It's an angle
about the fact remains, he hired a lot of investment banking people into his cabinet, who then made this bailout that benefited like only investment bankers and banks generally. And you know what question, the rest of us.
And you know what question we didn't ask? How are we going to pay for it?
Oh no, we didn't care. By the way, even Republicans were in on it. They were like, yeah, baby.
Yep.
Because they always are. As soon as it's their ass on the line, they know where their butter's bred. As soon as Trump needs a fucking stimulus checks to go out to the American people, they know how to get it done.
Yeah, I don't know what the best thing would have been in that situation, so I'm not coming to the table. I'm not bringing to the table a solution, but I'll be damned if the best way to do it was to make sure that the wealthiest of us just could not have suffered less, and the most middle and down of us couldn't have suffered more
because of what they did to us. That's the thing that gets removed from all this.
At both ends, we got fucked.
Like, they fucked our economy. They fucked everybody in the country over,
and they got a bonus.
Bonuses. Like, just that alone, that sentence alone should make you go, whatever we did to make that happen was the wrong decision. Yeah. And Jon Stewart's talked about this a lot. You can't simultaneously be the agent of change and have all of these fucking Goldman Sachs people in your ear. You can't do it. It's not going to work.
And he tried. And we now know you can't, because if
it's not going to work,
if it could be done, it would have been him, and it just couldn't happen. Now, Obama did a lot of great things throughout his presidency. The VA,
I'm not saying he didn't have courage. I'm just saying, like,
he did a lot of great things with the VA. He did a lot of great things with healthcare. Obviously, he did a lot of great things with, redistributing some wealth. But my God, go ahead.
That with the healthcare thing, just real quick, that had been trying to get done by every president since Reagan.
Yep.
So when you really get down to it, it's seen now as this like partisan win for us, when in reality, back in the day, it was like everybody knew we needed something. Like, I'm just saying, like, even a Goldman Sachs
knew
banker,
that we needed something 17 steps further than this.
Yeah, but even the Goldman Sachs guys couldn't talk him out of it, because it was like, okay, man, like, this is actually absurd what we're doing here.
Yeah. So then we get into where all the current politics talk stuff starts to fester and really comes to head. Because then we get the Henry Louis Gates stuff. And what Obama said about that, which was much maligned back then, when you show your ID that you live there and you still get arrested, it's perfectly said. That is, in a word, stupid. This is the most PG way that it could be said. It's stupid.
And then he had lunch with the fucking sheriff, and it didn't matter. And that's the thing, is that back then we believed it might. You've got to remember that. We actually thought that people would give a shit.
Yep.
We know now they weren't actually mad that he called them stupid.
No.
That's not what they were actually doing with that. It was just latching on to whatever the fuck was going on that week.
They were mad because he was black.
They were just latching on. That's what it was. He sincerely, because he's an optimist and a good faith and good-hearted person, believed that he had erred in some way with what he said.
Yep.
The truth was something much worse.
Yep.
If he would have come out and praised police officers, they just would have killed him for something different, he said that day.
Yep.
It's just a fact. Like,
yep. Death panels, we get a mention of that. It's the best example that I've ever seen that Republicans are better at messaging than us. They just are. They win at that stuff. We're always terrible at it.
You've seen the polls that people still believe in that?
Oh, yeah.
There's something like 40% of the country believes that Democrats are still trying to install death penalties. In fact, it was in Marjorie Taylor Greene's commercials.
Yeah,
that's what we would do if we took over the Senate and the presidency.
It's an oldie.
It's still here.
It's an oldie but a goodie. It's an oldie but a goodie.
I actually respect it, because I think, like, you
respect the classics.
No, I respect it because you're a good salesman when everybody knows it's false. Everybody, and it still works.
You know who's a good band? Pearl Jam. You know who's a good band, or who's a good artist? Billy Joel.
I just love it. I love when they bring up. I like when they bring up the deficits. I'm like, we're back. We're back, baby. The country's back in order.
Bon Jovi, man,
getting fixed, but not really. And they're bitching about the deficit. It's all the way it should be.
Pink Floyd, they're great, man. They really are.
Death panels and deficits.
Yep. Seeing Bill O'Reilly clutch his pearls just warmed my heart. It just warmed my heart.
Did you like that?
I enjoyed it. I saw him. I raised the glass, poured some out.
You should resign. Resign. He was serious, by the way.
Oh my God, was he serious?
Completely. In shame, I believe was the phrase. He should resign in shame.
As Jon Stewart says, with all of Levittown behind him, he should be ashamed.
And that, my friends, is why we took such delight in his downfall. Just saying.
Yes. I didn't take
delight. Moments like that.
I didn't take delight in the fact that he did those things. I took delight in the fact that we now know that he did those things and that the powers that be reacted to the fact that he did those things. Anyways.
He's a holier than thou prick and got what he deserved.
Win one for the guys back home.
That's right.
I never knew Andrew Breitbart looked like Fred Durst from Limp Bizkit, but it fits pretty well. That's just, it's, you know, I'm going to use it. Everybody get your glasses ready. It's incredible. It really is that Fred Durst is just a dead, or that Andrew Breitbart is a dead ringer for Fred Durst from Limp Bizkit. It's just awesome. Yeah. Sarah Palin and the Tea Party. Remember them? Remember how
that was weird?
Remember how hard, you know, think about how harmless they really were.
They had no power. They couldn't do anything.
None.
It was like AOC and her squad of 4 other people right now. They couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
It was like
it's very funny that the next guy comes on the scene as the head of the birther movement. It's just perfect for who he is. It encapsulates who he is as a person. Just a piece of shit.
It's also it shows. I mean, you don't need to look very far to see what a fucking moron that guy is. But another great piece of evidence is that after he did this shit, he accepted an invitation to the White House because he thought it was legit and not to make fun of him.
Yeah,
that is the true sign of a moron.
Yeah.
Where you just shit down this guy's throat for years and you think he's actually inviting you?
Yeah.
They must have lost their shit when they found out he was coming. With just perfect glee.
Yeah. And Obama was just ready. It was cool to see Jon Favreau.
Yeah, our guy.
He got like 40 seconds. It was cool. I don't know.
To say that how much he delighted in making fun of Trump. Because that moment has now become like, he shouldn't have done it. That's what led to Trump running. Because, by the way, this has been said ad nauseum. Trump decided to run that night. That's what happened.
Yeah, but come on. You had him in the house. You got to.
I'm just going to say it. I would have been a lot meaner.
Yeah.
Like, way meaner.
Yeah.
Like, there were no fat jokes. There were no ugly jokes.
No.
There were no, you've dated 5 people. Like, married 5 people. You want to fuck your daughter. There was none of that.
There was none of that.
I'm just saying, like, it was mean.
And the sad part is just everything that you just said that would normally be like, oh, you're just a partisan. No, like, that shit's documented. And he's even made jokes about it. Like, it's real.
And all he did was the Simba thing. It's not really that bad. And he talked about how he bankrupts every business he touches, which is also true.
Bingo. So this then brings us to the one more of the doc that I have zero clue why it was included. I did not like it, and it did not work for me. I don't know why Key and Peele was in it.
Oh, to do his anger translator thing?
Like,
you know, I'm sorry.
This is a doc that was including like his life growing up in Indonesia. I don't need Keegan-Michael Key.
It could have been shorter, but I think it was important because I think I do, because I think we all collectively understand and know this guy somehow made it 8 years without telling all of us to just fuck right the hell off. And that's kind of incredible. It really is. It really actually speaks to, even though I don't think his actions matched his words all the time, I believe that he actually meant what he was saying.
Yeah, sure.
And that's something. I believe he actually did want to do good, because nobody who wasn't sincere about it could have made it through that 8 years without telling us to fuck right the hell off.
And on that note, part 3 was generally just his reactions to stuff, starting with the Henry Louis Gates stuff. The way that he handled the Trayvon Martin case,
Still underrated.
it's
because they didn't say this enough in the doc. Trayvon looks like him.
Yeah.
I don't know why
And
nobody mentioned that.
Well, he says that.
He says it, but they don't go into it enough. Obama says, I could have been his dad. And then later he says, that could have been me. Basically, he looks like him.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Like Dave Chappelle's talked about this weirdly enough.
Yeah.
It should have been a thing that drove that story. But ultimately it was like, holy shit, that looks like Obama's kid or like teenage Obama.
Yeah, he said if I had a son, that's what he would look like.
No question. There's no question.
He says that,
like him,
and he knew that, and it impacted him. It was another moment where we see the curtain get pulled back, that he actually gives a shit. If this was the other guy, he would have approached it as if there was no rules, and that his every splitting thought that he had needed to be said, needed to be tweeted, needed to be just shouted to the masses. With no regard, he showed, there is not a word in the English language that describes how that man handled this and all the other 90 situations that was thrust upon him.
And also, he never really had his moment after the verdict to kind of melt down and be like, because he only really does the sort of meltdown once. And it's after the Sandy Hook shooting, and it's after the gun control doesn't pass.
Yep.
The Trayvon stuff, he's very, very calm the whole time.
If Romney wins, do we ever get Trump? I don't know if it's an important point.
Well, because the White House Correspondents' Dinner doesn't happen. Is that your point?
Well, no, because then the quote unquote the backlash to the Obama presidency, I don't know if it happens.
No, this is something that we've talked a lot about off air. And, it sounds weird. I think as a country, we might actually be better off. Because I don't think
I couldn't agree more.
I don't think that this strain of pure insanity comes to the forefront as quickly. It was brewing to a degree I don't think any reasonable person thought was still there.
And at least this way we shine a light on it. At least this way we shine a light on it, and we at least some of us have to deal with it.
Yes.
His Sandy Hook speech, going again back to his just willingness to be candid in a way that was still measured and still befitting that of a president.
It's my third favorite speech of his.
It's
my first one is at the church.
Yeah, it's again another moment where we see, you know exactly what he's thinking about. You know exactly that he's thinking about his own children. You know exactly that he's thinking about his mom. You know exactly that he's thinking about stuff that's very intimate, very genuine, very heartfelt, and very just personable.
You know what didn't get enough play is that, God, I don't even want to bring him into this. If the other guy would have said, I'm going to go home and hug my kids tonight a little tighter, nobody would have believed him. Not even his most ardent supporters. When Obama says, tonight I'm going to go home.
But here's the thing. He wasn't capable of saying that.
That's what I mean. But when he says it, you're all of a sudden like, he's channeling.
It's chilling.
He's channeling the best of us.
Yep.
In that moment. Even the people who suck in this country had to be like, you know what? Fuck, he's right. Like, I am going to go home and I am going to hug my kid a little bit tighter today.
Yeah.
Because he was doing his best at all times, even when it was, you could tell he didn't want to, trying to channel the best of us, trying to.
Just doing his absolute damnedest. And he succeeded on some levels. He failed on others. but it's not even so much that the failure is on him. The failure is more on us that we just weren't willing to listen. Because as they say in the doc, when he's doing these speeches, it's as though this is a law school class. Because we didn't even touch on it. He was a law school professor. And it's as though in these moments, he's teaching us what it is like to be someone like him. He's teaching us what it is like to have to watch this just utter bullshit.
And to actually feel responsible.
Yeah.
Because that's another part of this we haven't talked about enough. His ability and willingness to say, you know what, it's on me. This is on me. I'm the president. This is what we do here. Yep. This is how shit works.
Yep.
And not be like, hey man, there's things that actually are out of my control, just realistically.
Yeah.
Is actually incredible, because that, with the Sandy Hook stuff, with the gun violence stuff, people I don't think talk about this the right way. It's that he feels some measure of responsibility, and he's talked about this.
And objectively, he is, but not in the way that you would traditionally say it's your fault. He was not able to convince enough people in government to give a shit about it.
So it makes you think of the wildfires where we didn't get aid for several weeks. It's like Obama's thing was, look, things that happen on my watch in this country are my fault. And if it's not going the right way, then I have to do something about it. I have to try. And
he said that the '08 crash happened on my watch. No, it fucking didn't.
And we all knew that, by the way, but we didn't realize.
But what's the point? What, it doesn't help anything. It doesn't do any good to say,
it do?
Oh, this is the other guy's fault. Let's see if I can clean it up. Just move on. Be the bigger person. Anyways, the Dylan Roof shooting was probably, for my money, the most harrowing, because he walks into a church, prays with them, and then kills them. I'm not one to, like, I don't even know if the phrase is correct, but over sentimentalize religion. But, like, wow. It's one of those moments that I just don't, I couldn't even begin to understand the psychology.
Sorry, Roof has obviously been in the news recently.
Yeah.
Because his death sentence was upheld yesterday. We're doing this on Thursday, August 26th. So yesterday being the 25th, his death sentence was upheld. It's the first death sentence ever given for a federal hate crime in the history of the country.
Yep.
I mentioned it earlier. His speech at the church is my favorite he's ever given, because I think it's the truest to him.
Yep.
I don't think that there is a word in that speech that he said because he felt like he had to.
Yep.
I think he sincerely meant all of it. But I also think that what's incredible about it, when you actually watch it like 100 times, like I have, is that he's dealing, you see it on his face during the broadcast, he's dealing with some shit.
Yep.
Being like, holy shit, like my kids have to grow up in a world like this type of stuff.
Yep.
That you and I just don't have to think about.
Nope.
But he also takes the time to, like, make us feel better about it, as opposed to just doing this is hard for me, because he goes to, this is actually the positive spin on this that makes sense and is going to, by the way, maybe keep us from fucking killing each other, because there's a way to channel that the other way.
Yeah.
We've seen it. And we've seen it.
Yeah.
And he chose not to. And to instead, again, try. And by the way, that's the same day that gay marriage was legalized by the Supreme Court. Same day. All happened on the same day.
Yep.
But it just does. I'm sorry. I just don't think that there's enough credit given to that he's trying to lift us up at a moment that is clearly one of his lowest. And that's really hard to do.
And it so shouldn't be on him to do that.
No,
but time and again, he takes the opportunity to be that person that is doing that because he knows he's capable, and he knows because he has that talent to do it, that in some way it is his responsibility. The fact that you could do an entire third of this documentary just about his reactions to shootings and to tragedies, it says a lot about where we are with gun violence and where we are just with not even unrest isn't the right word, with division in the country.
Yeah, and one more thing on the speech. There's a handful of speeches that he wrote every word of. That's one of them.
Yeah.
You always have a speechwriter look over it. That was one he didn't allow.
And he started out wanting to only write his own stuff, and then it just became too much of a heavy lift. So,
but that speech at the church that day is all his words.
Yeah.
Like completely. There's not a single thing that anybody else edited, which makes it that much more impressive, frankly. You talk about the reactions to shootings. When I look back on this, hindsight's 2020. But you can see it, the groundwork being laid all over the place.
Yep.
Like why are shootings going up? Like what's going on? It's because there's a section of the population that's very, very fucking unhappy.
Yep.
About the direction the country's going, frankly, whether they consciously know that or not, they feel like shit is being taken away from them. They're being told it is. Every night on the news, they're being told this guy is taking shit from you.
Yep.
And then someone comes along and channels it, and we the whole time are like, well, that won't work. That won't work. That won't work. It's like, of course it's going to work for 8 years. It's been, the seeds have been planted for 8 years.
And the reality of the situation is that the people that are committing these heinous acts, the people that are doing these look like you and I. There's a
almost exclusively.
If not even just exclusively. There's a reason. And it's because a lot of the time during those 8 years, they didn't like what was happening. They didn't like what they saw. And this was part of that backlash. And it was part of the backlash that we saw in who the next guy was and what the next guy did, what the next guy said, what the next guy wrote, or really tweeted. Wrote makes it sound like he, actually had an independent thought.
Or could read.
But I mean, there's a reason, and
there is, and it's
it's unfortunate.
I want to be clear because I feel like I've made myself available as someone. I'm willing to criticize him on a lot of things, and I'm willing to go a lot deeper on that criticism than we've gone on this. But
by the way, the two main points that I disagree with him wholeheartedly on is the bailout. Not great. Not a fan of giving money to the super wealthy because they fucked up. And not a huge fan of just bombing people with just utmost, just in the Kevin Harlan saying, with complete disregard for human life. In a very, very harrowingly serious tone. He had the drones, he fucking used them. Now, if the argument can be made that if Bush had the same technology, he would have done that and more. The fact of the matter is that Obama used them more than any other president, and boy, did it happen.
But there's one, you're right, but there's that one thing.
And it's bad. And it was a bad thing.
I'm willing to criticize him on a lot, but there's one thing that you have to include in all this is that the reaction to him, I think he did everything he could have to limit that part of it. And what we didn't know then and what we know now is that there wasn't anything that could have been done.
Yep.
It was they've done studies on this. Counties that are majority Republican are the number one place that sign up at healthcare.gov.
Yep.
The people that are actually, by and large, the demographic that is benefiting the most from these things that they perceive as things that are being taken away from them are the people who are being told that horse shit and vote accordingly.
Yep.
So it's like, I just, again, we've talked about it. I don't know what you do with that, because literally people act as though people sincerely believe that like Biden now and Obama then is going to take shit from them. A US senator said on the floor of the Senate, they are going to come to your house and take your Bible. Josh Hawley said it on the floor of the Senate. They're going to come and they're going to take your Bible. The COVID vaccines are basically just a warm up for that.
Yep.
That is okay. But that, I'm just saying,
I would just leave
that is the
there.
domino effect.
It speaks for itself of how just.
But it's the domino effect of this.
Yeah.
These people are taking your country from you.
Yeah.
And
if you hear it enough, you're going to believe it. It's amazing to me that many times, not even just throughout his presidency, he did the convention speech again this past election cycle. So many times he's had to bear the responsibility of the person who comes to the mic and address the horrific occurrence or this momentous event or to be the bigger person. And his ability to, after speaking, he usually either leaves the situation better or at a minimum makes you think about it differently. There are very few people that are able to do that. When Biden talks, I'm hoping that it's just a good speech. When Obama talks, I'm waiting to hear something that I've never thought of before. I am waiting to hear something that's more profound than I could ever think of, much less coherently express in a speech in front of, hundreds of millions of people.
In my opinion, his speech after the Sandy Hook vote, where he was willing finally to take the gloves off a little bit.
Yep.
Was, I know it's not who he is. The reason it didn't happen more is because it's not who he is. You see it with his unwillingness to change his name for polls. He's going to be who he is.
Yep.
He's not the guy to get up there and chastise people. But if he would have done more of that kind of thing, who knows? Maybe we're better off. But that moment does stick out because he gets out with the families next to him and just lets it rip. There's no notes. Go back and look at it. He's not reading anything.
Doesn't need
he's
to.
He's like, look, it's pretty simple. A minority in the Senate today. Stop this. That makes no sense.
Yep.
And we have to answer the people next to me, basically. So,
yep. My last note was just that it was a very good decision and a very easy decision to start and end, to bookend the whole doc with two speeches. The doc, as we said, it missed a few good opportunities to be more artistically honest. Didn't do nearly as much of Obama's use of military force, did not nearly look into enough his handling of the bailout, and it did not do nearly enough criticisms that I was hoping for. But for the most part, it was a very ambitious doc, and I thought was done for the most part well, and I would say I liked it. What about you?
There's one thing that I wish was in there that was just completely ignored. I mean, obviously the stuff that went down in the Middle East is, frankly, we don't talk about it enough as an American society because we don't talk about anything unless it affects us. Fuck, there's half the country that won't get a vaccine because they perceive it doesn't affect them. What I wish was in there, and I don't know how you do it because they were doing everything chronologically and it would have felt weird to end on this note.
Yeah.
Not enough was made, I think, of him inviting Trump to the White House being gracious
Yeah.
to him while there, leaving him the letter. By the way, being a perfect gentleman about all of it, where you or I would not have been.
Yeah.
This is a guy who literally made up a lie that he was born in another country, and he was still a gentleman because he realized, if I do what Trump did, if I don't welcome him, if I get on Marine One and I fuck out of here, it's gonna, half the country, the half that we happen to agree with, is gonna start fucking rioting and getting pissed off. And I don't want that on my hands. So I'm gonna make nice. And that's the point, is that people act like it's just mean tweets or whatever that we're pissed off about. It's like, no, it's these moments where you need to be told by an adult in the room to calm the fuck down, and you're being told to go harder. That's what he did for us for those few weeks.
Yep.
Because I'm sorry, like, Russia did interfere with our elections. So we could have done exactly what the Republicans are doing now and just endlessly audited shit, and we would have had a better basis for it.
Yep.
But we didn't, because it was like, hey, the guy that's at the top was like, for the greater good, this is what we're going to do. Because someday we want to be able to take back over and not have them do exactly what they fucking did anyway.
Republicans play the game better than the Democrats. Normally we do MVPs and all that stuff. I think we're good. It's an important doc. I think many people will do different iterations and do it better. The floor for an Obama doc is just pretty high. Given
you can play the hits, you can play any number of speeches, including his top 5, and
you're gonna make a good doc because of just how great of a
he's good for TV.
Yeah,
he's great on TV.
Yeah. So, anyways, I think we can end it there. The next one, Tim, I believe you picked Tenet. Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna do Tenet. We're gonna write the sequel, and then we're gonna redo the original. Coming up next.
Or it already came up. Yeah, so, and we're gonna have a guest on, one of our friends from back home. Should be fun. But yeah, watch it. It's a long watch, and that's why it ended up being a longer podcast than normal. So, enjoy this, enjoy the doc. Thanks everybody for listening. And Ted Cruz, he didn't end up coming up in this doc because he was a latecomer to the Obama presidency, but it still needs to be said. Ted Cruz, please go fuck yourself. Elvis Monroe, please play us out.
One day, someday, fiction girl. She's my one day, someday. She's my one day, someday. Gotta have her, gonna call her baby. One day, someday. She's gonna call me baby, gonna have a family. I can see it in her eyes. Our future's so bright. Gonna wake up by his side. One day, someday. She's my one day, someday. Fiction girl. She's my one day, someday.